Hey, how are you doing,
Hey,
Tracy? How's everything?
I'm doing great. So, how are you? When we first got on,
hmm
I sensed a different energy.
Uh,
Where are you? Where are you today?
I am, before we got on, so I came from the gym, ran in, got ready and was sitting here and waiting. What was I thinking? I was thinking, oh, what's my ethos? What do I live by? Right. And I was like, I'll ask Tracy that question. What, what is that phrase? What is that understanding that you live by? So I think what you found me, I was in a deep thought. That's why I was, I had my head down and was thinking. So that's it. Nothing else.
You
Mama's
were
beautiful.
deep in thought. So do share. What is your ethos?
I, strangely, not strangely, but a friend of mine wrote an article about the three brains, and I was thinking about it, and I muttered, I meditated on it for not a long while, but a short while, and I said, when we all get to do unto others as you have them do unto you, because that's mine, right? If whatever I'm teaching out, I must be the one to receive it. I must receive it 10 times over. So if I'm dishing out love and I'm dishing out before I speak, I think, is this how I want to hear it? I play it in my mind, and if it's not how I want to hear it, I must pause. I must pause, and I must be mature enough to pause and not be concerned with what the other person is thinking about, what the other person is saying. Why are you pausing? That I own me. I own my I own my feelings. I own the radius, a certain amount of radius around me. I own it and I can control it so that nobody pushes me. So do unto others as you have them do unto you. So that's my brain coming in, that's my heart, that's my gut. Everything is coming in as I'm saying to myself, is this how I want to say it? How will this person get it? And I know that the motive, and we've talked about, strangely, we talk about this thing almost every other time we speak.
We
It's
circle around.
we circle around. It's how, when I'm saying this, my motive is out of love. It's not out of hate. It's not crabs in the bucket. It's to either propel you, it's to make you see things in a different way if you choose to see it. But it's my thought process towards you that is not wrapped in hate. Right. So do unto others as you have them do unto you. And that comes from my grandfather. He always said, whatever you give, be able to receive it 10 times over. And I don't want to receive hate 10 times over. It's not a good thing.
Or pushback, or
Woo.
I mean, I love that so much, and it's so timely. I mean, I was reading an article just earlier today, and it was talking about this very thing, what we need to keep in mind, moving forward in the times we're in. And the ownership piece that you talk about was mentioned, is really asking some core questions. In fact, if I can pull it up real quick, I'll go over the core questions. It's
Sure.
because there were some really, really good ones. The best approach to, and they were talking about story and how we use story, and not just the stories we tell others or the outside world, but the stories that are constantly kind of going through our own heads. And the stories, I mean, I was talking to a client earlier about this very thing. It's the meaning we give things
Mhm.
becomes our reality, right? And if we're moving into a new space where we want to create new habits and patterns, we can't be using language that carries the old with us, right? So he was saying, I'm a person who tends to go into savior role. And I said, well, there's the language. I'm a person who
Mhm.
tends to is still present tense, which means you're carrying that old pattern that you're trying to step away from into the present
Wow.
reality. And so it's about, I used to struggle with doing that. And now I am choosing to, right? We need to shift our language, right? So that's part of our story, is the language we use. And they were talking about how it's, you know, in best approaching creating our quote unquote news story, or our new narrative, as we like to say, is to ask certain questions. And some of these, I'm just going to throw them out there because I'm like, I'm going to sit down and journal on this, and maybe we can talk about it today because they're really great. So the first one was, what and whom do you serve in this life? What and whom do you serve in this life? And this can be, you know, on the more spiritual level of things. It can be on the more practical level of things, right? In the day to day, you know, whom do you serve? So if we were talking to our business clients, who are your clients, right? And you know, and what is it that you're here to serve them?
Correct.
Right? What is that value? The second question is, what do you fear? What do you fear? I thought that was a really good one. Good one to ask ourselves, all of ourselves right now. How are you supported was the third question.
Wow.
Right? How are you supported? What truly makes you happy? In other words, what constitutes joy for you? Right? What truly makes you happy? What are the addictions you desire to change? Right? And we can be addicted to patterns.
Correct.
So this isn't just alcohol and drugs. And, you know, the things that we typically think of with addictions is we can be addicted to old patterns just because we know them. Right? They're safe and secure because we've done it a million times. So what are the addictions you desire to change? What are your energy leaks? Right? Where's your energy leaking out into things you don't want that energy to be going into?
Correct.
Right? So what are your energy leaks? What part of your current story are you truly done with? What part of your current, and some of the previous questions can be part of that. What part of your current story are you truly done with? What are your disappointments, resentments, and judgments? What are your disappointments, resentments, and judgments? Where are you not neutral? That's a really good one. Because when we know where our triggers are, that's where we can't be neutral.
Correct.
I was just talking to a really good friend of mine the other day, and I said, you know, I have become very, very clear on one of probably my core trigger. And my core trigger is when people devalue me or I am disrespected. Right? When I am not valued as a human being in any way, right?
Gotcha.
Whether it's devalued as a woman, devalued, you know, where people say, oh, I'm there for you, and then they're not, you know, you know, to me, that's again, disrespected. If somebody just completely abandons something, I mean, we all have reasons why we don't show up, but you know, they don't try to come back and explain, you know, those kinds of things. That is a hairpin trigger for me.
So may I, when that trigger occurs, what happens?
So I was just about to get to that.
Oh,
that's it's a really good question. It's a really good question. So in the past, because I'm using a different language story language here. In the past, I've been very quick to find a way to cut and run.
Gotcha.
And there's many ways we can cut and run. We can cut and run by disregarding, like, they're not worth my time. That's a cut and run. Right? We're making ourselves better than, we're separating ourselves, right? Separation is a cut and run. That's what I mean when I say that. So I separate myself. And you know, I can do that physically, I can do that mentally, but I cut and run. And what I now do is I get curious. I simply get curious, and not curious towards an end, but just curious. Like, okay, curious on two things. Curious on, oh, I'm feeling this feeling. That's interesting. I'm feeling I'm feeling resentful right now. Let me work with that. And
Wow.
2, I'm curious about what happened on the other person's side, what the story of the other person is, why they did that.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah.
Interesting.
So curiosity is actually really helping me to stay neutral, because when the mind needs something, and the mind usually goes to protect us, right? The ego kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when we can step in and we can kind of recalibrate and repurpose our mind to thinking about things from, again, it's the difference between problem solving and solution orientation, right? If you're a skier, I have a friend who's just like an incredible skier, and like just loves to go fast. And, it's one of those things where it's like, when he's skiing and he's skiing totally fast, sometimes it's like, God, it goes down and into the tree lines, and like is navigating these trees so fast. It's like, how does he not hit a tree? You know how he doesn't hit a tree? He doesn't focus on the trees. He focuses on the path. And so he sees the path. So that's where his skis go, right? And his body is on the path, not into the trees. And so it's that readjustment, recalibration, is if I don't want to be in this place of ego where I'm just, dukes up, I'm protecting myself. I want to be in a state of neutrality, then I get to be in a state of curiosity. Because ultimately, I don't know. I'm telling myself a story I've been disqualified, disengaged from, or disrespected. That's the story I'm telling myself. Is that the reality, though? Right? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Correct.
The point is I don't know. And so if the truth is that I don't know, because I have no proof of one or the other, I might as well stay neutral. Right. And it keeps me from going into that, because then what happens? We tell that first story. Oh, I've been disrespected. And then we go on and we create a whole, novel about it. And the next thing you know, this person who's like, I am so sorry to get back, they finally get back to you, maybe even years later, and you have built up a tome of resentment and storyline and stuff. And they're just like, yeah, I was hijacked and I was, like all these things, whatever. Like, and you're just like, oh my God, like you were kidnapped. And I'm the whole time I'm thinking you're this terrible person. And meanwhile, you're fighting for your life. Anyway, that's extreme. But my whole point being, we make this whole thing up and half the time, really in the opposite direction of the truth.
Way there. Yes.
And in the meantime, too, not just the story we're making up, but all the emotions we're carrying, right? All that stuff that then if it happens enough times that we tell that story of enough people, and I talk about hairpin trigger, because that one is, like I said, core trigger. It does not take much for somebody to go into the range, or it didn't take much for people in the past to go into that range of disqualification like that. Correct. Over pretty much nothing. You could look at me sideways and I felt disrespected and I was cutting and running. Right. So that's the thing is that I carry that. So then it starts to tell me the story that I can't trust anyone, or, I'm not like everyone else. And so I need to just stay to my own, or I can't trust people, or whatever the storyline that I start to develop, because I'm giving that same story to every little thing that I choose to put in that bucket of disrespect.
Correct. Right. You as you were saying that, I think, thank you, eavesdroppers. We have Cornelius Cordell. Hey, how are you doing? Cordell says, I own me. Cornelius goes on to say self-awareness and self-management. On point with that. James Benton, you also need to see the history of our language and their ideas. James, thank you. Cornelius goes, energy leaks. Ooh, great language. Cordell goes, respect and reciprocity are areas where I'm not neutral at all. Roy comes on to say, the way you use curiosity, Traci, is very effective. Roy goes, what triggers me is when someone says, you're disrespecting me. You know,
Because it's a
I
choice. Yes.
yeah, you
Yes.
know, the what I heard you say is the solution wasn't in the environment. The solution was within you. The solution was you checking on and asking these questions, right?
Which
Pondering
is
these
always the
questions.
case,
It's always the
right? The
case
solution is always within us.
because
We
I
then
am not,
manifest it externally, but it always starts in here.
yeah, I cannot go to my marriage and say my wife is always doing this. She is always doing this. So if she's always doing it, pause for a second and say, what's triggering her always? What's
I'm always
triggering
telling the
that?
story. She's
I'm
always doing it.
I'm always doing this. So you know what? Let me switch up what I'm saying, or the relationships, the business relationships we have. This person is always late. Why is this person always coming down on me when we're in brainstorming sessions? Anything I say, they have a counter. So it's, and curiosity is, hey, John or Jill, why am I reading wrongly? Or am I right that every single time I say something, you're jumping down my throat? And they go, oh, no, no, I was thinking on it. Oh, okay, great. It's that curiosity where you're attempting to uncover what the issue is, that most people don't know how to engage it. So they run from it.
Yeah.
Now,
Or they fight it.
they fight it. My way is always, I may be wrong, but am I understanding you when you say da da da, or when I
That's
say that, you go
curiosity.
and they
Yeah.
go, no, I'm like, okay, school me. And they go, no, I do blah blah blah. And I said, that's excellent. That's great. Because you know, I didn't want to leave this place thinking that way about you. And then all of a sudden, the relationship becomes even tighter because why? I've been authentic. I've been kind of vulnerable because
Yeah.
I'm saying my heart, because I don't want that thing, that tone that you talked about. It takes a whole lot of time to build. It takes a whole lot of time to go and think on how Cornelius did something to me, and pondering on it. And Cornelius is there doing his You Matter videos and laughing and doing and living his
Cornelius is just
best.
doing Cornelius. And meanwhile,
Yes,
you're making up this whole story
I
that
am here
Cornelius has
calling.
no knowledge of.
And as soon as I see him on Instagram smiling, that's gonna piss me off because I'm not smiling. He's smiling. I'm going, why is this dude always smiling? He's pissing me off. But back to the questions that you were asking. Oh my goodness.
You want me to finish the questions so that everybody has them?
See, I'm typing them. I'm typing them and
Oh,
putting
are
them
you?
in.
Yeah. So
Yes, I
let
am.
me, there's
So
more.
we are, where are you not neutral? What else?
So what are you not ready or willing to let go of?
What are
Love these.
you?
These
So
questions are so great.
eavesdroppers, please, I'm typing it. Don't I will, I just put it under questions to ponder upon. I'm going to put all of these in there so you can just go back to it and get it. So what is it? What are you not?
What are you not ready or willing to let go of?
Okay.
What are you ready and willing to let go of? So, I mean,
What are you
again,
not?
what are you, let's put it this way. One question, what are you not ready and ready and willing to let go of, right? So what are the things you're not ready to let go of? What are the things you are ready to let go of?
Okay.
What are you past? Oh, what are your, sorry, your, not you. What are your past unrealized dreams that are no longer viable? That one is really good. I know you thought it was going to be one of those dreams. Let's get back into the dreams. What are the dreams we've been living on? Because again, we're moving towards these dreams that we haven't even asked ourselves a question. Do I still want that?
Yeah.
Right? We're manifesting stuff in our lives. And then we're just like, oh, shoot, it shows up. Like we started manifesting 15 years ago and it starts showing up now. And now we're like, oh God, I don't know if I want this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So what are your past unrealized dreams that are no longer viable?
Uh-huh.
And then What are your theories? What is your truth?
What are your theories? One question.
What are your, it's a comma. What are your theories, comma, what is your truth? So that goes to your opening. That's why I was like, what? Boy, you always do this, right? Or we do it together, right?
Yes.
It's like, what's your ethos? And then I'm like, wait a minute. I was just.
Yeah. Keep it coming, Traci.
That's it. That's it for now. That's
okay.
enough.
I'm gonna
I'll be
enter
journaling on that for a while.
And there it is. Yeah, Roy, you're welcome. So of all these questions, I was prioritizing and going, okay, this is one, but then I'm like, now this is strange, because every one of these you can spend a couple hours, unpacking, right? But I think that who do you serve? The very first one was really impactful in my thought process, because who do I serve is more about me preparing to serve, because I have to serve myself first. And we've talked about this again in previous circles. We have to prepare ourselves in order to be servants.
Yes.
Now, before coming on, I was thinking in B school, we always had the conversation. Here's the professor would come in, the 3 Ps: people, planet, profits. Which ones, as leaders, as managers, would you give first priority to? And I mean, most people will go, profit. And I would, no. And I would stand up. No, it's people. Planet, yes, planet is definitely, because without the planet,
I would say planet because the people are on the planet.
Correct. I said planet is a given because we're on here and so on. So planet is in its own sphere. I'm talking about between profit and people. I'm going for people. And who do you serve? Answers that question, because without people, customers, you have internal and external customers. Your internal customers are your employees. If you're so big on your external customers and looking at the Google reviews and all these things that, oh, they're so great, and your internal, you will never have, most times, if your internal customers are not happy, you are not yielding the best, even if you are top 1 in your industry.
So can I say something on that real quick?
Go ahead.
Because even when you don't have employees, you know who your internal customer is?
Go ahead. There you go.
Because I see plenty of people doing that, looking at how many followers do I have? How much product have I, passed on? How many people am I serving this week? And they don't see the profit numbers or the numbers they want. And they start telling the story about themselves.
Yeah.
They're not treating their inner employee in a way that's going to make them want to be productive and innovative in order to get those goals.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So we're like so focused externally. I mean, we've been conditioned that way. So again, no shame, no blame, but having that awareness and realizing, when we're comparing ourselves to other people, we're on LinkedIn and we're like, oh, they've got 55,000 followers. And, I don't even have 2,000. And, like, what is that story internally telling our internal customer? Right? The one that needs to reach those goals, we're going to demotivate them and expect them to reach the goals. That's what we're doing constantly. And the other piece that I want to say about that too, is that what I love when we talk about things here too, is you and I are very purpose driven. And part of our purpose drivenness is about saying, not just talking about it. Like, I'm really getting kind of bored is the right word. Of all these articles and things out there when they're like, okay, I'm going to use empathy as an example because everybody is talking about empathy in leadership. Is they're talking about the importance of it. Well, duh. But they're not talking about how to reach that. And if they do talk about how to reach that, it's all external training.
Correct.
No.
Correct.
You got to get right in here. I mean, these questions we're talking about today, these are part of driving ourselves towards leadership. That article that I wrote for Brains Magazine about the internal senses, that was to show people we have this stuff and to start working on it, because that is going to allow us to have these things that they're saying, all the polls are telling us we need to have as leaders.
Yes.
We get it. We're supposed to have empathy. Well, guess what? You know what? We all have empathy. We were all born with empathy.
Yes.
I mean, it drives me nuts when they say it is an innate trait, but it is, how did it, I was looking it up the other day in the dictionary, and it was something like, it's an innate trait, but it's a learned value. It's like, no, it's an innate trait that we consciously decide to hone. There's a difference. We are all born with the capacity for empathy. It's not something we have to go and buy to have. We have to go pay for some training to get. Right? It's not an earned capacity. It's an innate, inborn
Correct.
trait. And so that means that we already have it, but it's about developing it inside ourselves, not just this. Oh, I mean, I always think it's funny. It's like, yeah, if you could just say it and then we would become it. None of us, well, you and I would be out of business. Right? Because if it was just a matter of knowing it and then we were doing it, then there would be no development. It would just be like osmosis, where we realize, oh, I need that, and boom, now I am that.
It's a download like the Matrix.
Yeah.
Know how to fight Tai Chi and do everything in a second.
I
know. But James says, companies do not survive without making money. This has to be structured carefully. It makes sense that by taking care of people, our people will do their best, and our external customers will see this providing a source of income. And that's true.
Yes.
The conversation
the gap.
isn't people first and forget about profit. No, I think we're all saying the same thing, and thumbs up to that, James. It's a balancing act, in everything, in moderation. You can't, like we say, what was one of the questions? What are the addictions? What are your
addictions?
What are your addictions, right? If your addiction is making money, when something occurs with the employee, if the employee gets injured on the machinery, you turn and go, oh my goodness, the machinery, we got to clean this machine and make sure it's working, rather than, oh, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Let's call the ambulance, let's make sure. And then the employee says, the machinery, you go, no, it's okay. Let's handle this. It's my daughter runs upstairs. Oh, so her friend, she drives to school, takes them to school, was in an accident last night, right?
Your daughter was, or her friend was?
No, her friend who's the driver taking them to school. And my daughter goes, she comes on the chat, the girl who had the accident. So let's call the girl A. A comes on the chat and goes, I just had an accident. Once somebody somebody came in, how's the car? Is the car damaged? And I'm not saying the person was wrong. Not saying, because that's the person's
just shows priority.
Care. Yeah, that's the person's care. That's where they're looking from. But I swear, I would feel so good if someone asked me first, how are you doing, Wulwyn? A, how are you doing? Is everything okay? You know where my daughter goes? And I was looking at them like, the car, or the lady, or the girl, or A, are you okay? Is everything okay with you, A? I think when someone sees me, and it goes to the trigger that you said, when someone disrespects you, when someone sees me, when someone sees you, how does it make you feel? Oh my goodness. You for that company, you will die for that company that is seeing you for who you are.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. They will stand
it can be an overwhelming feeling too,
to ensure that you succeed, versus if it's profit. And guess what? And you're not even sharing that profit. That's another topic, right?
Correct. But, and I do also appreciate that James bridged that gap, because absolutely these things are all important. What we're saying is that, it kind of is like the conversation I have, the do to be to do. You know, people think, oh, I've got to do this to be that, right? I've got to do all these things to be profitable or to be successful or to be considered a good husband or to be considered a good friend or whatever. And really, we need to flip that script, I believe, right? Is what do I need to be? Because when we, back to your ethos question, you know, or pondering, you know, once we get in alignment and own who we're here to be, the natural choice of what we do to align with that will be in conjunction with that being, right? So we're doing the things that are aligned to the way in which we're choosing to be. Yeah. That's why a lot of times people find that they've created a persona or an identity that isn't comfortable for them after they get to a certain point in life, and they're like, well, I thought I was supposed to do all these things. And I mean, I used to have that conversation with the men who are incarcerated at Butner. They're like, I look back now, I mean, I didn't take time to realize where my priorities lay. I didn't take time to think about how I was treating my kids or my wife, you know, based on my desire and drive to be profitable and successful. And now that I'm sitting here in prison and I have plenty of time to think about what got me here, I can go back and say, holy crud, you know, I can see it every road. It wasn't just the things out of integrity that I was doing that got me incarcerated from a professional standpoint. I basically was doing all of these things out of alignment with who I wanted to be as a father, as a husband, as a human being.
Wow.
In my other interactions as well, because I was in the doing. I need to do this. I need to get out of here and get to work so I can make money. I don't have time to talk to you, wife. I don't have time to be with you, kids. I need to do. And because they were focused on the doing, their being wasn't really all that well aligned to the relationships they were trying to form.
And we do want to form the relationships.
Well, that's basically what life is about, isn't it?
And we do want to form it, but we're driven. It's so hard, Tracy, the balancing act, moderation. It's so hard.
It's actually not.
No, when I'm saying, I hear what you're saying. I'm speaking this from a place of, if you're not thinking and being, it's hard because you're driven by that thing. Your drive to succeed. It's Michael Jordan practicing right after practice. He stays there the entire evening, practices, team practices. He practices again. Off season, he's practicing. He's driven by it. And what we see in 3, 4, 5 years after he retires, oops, the marriage is done. And we're like, gosh, what happened, dude? Because now he's home and she's home and she's like, I don't even know you, right? Yeah. Could he have been, but here's the thing, could he still have been MJ, the GOAT, so these trade-offs, but what's yours?
Trade-offs, I think that's when we're thinking this or that. But I think when we're thinking this and that and finding the solutions is, you know, does the wife want to come along, you know, to spend some time, you know, after, can she meet him after the second practice, you know, and go out to dinner or whatever. I mean, we find these ways to do this and that. That's
true.
When we think in those terms, if we're thinking this or that. I was just listening to a Gary V, this or that. Like, I don't know if you know who Gary V is.
I know who Gary V.
Yeah, Gary V. So I appreciate Gary V in his ability to show up as who he is.
Yeah, yes.
He has a certain way to delivering things. It wouldn't be my choice of delivery, but the man is who he is 100% of the time, and he speaks his mind.
Those bombs flow.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So he was doing this whole this or that thing. And he's like, you know, I mean, typical Gary V style. Letting people know it isn't this or that, it's this and that. And the more we live in a this or that world, the more we're going to infight, the more we're going to be taking polarity and capitalizing on it. The more we're going to be Democrat versus basically against, you know, a cancel culture. That's all this or that thinking. right? When we think this and that, we are suddenly looking for a solution to incorporate and integrate, and that famous word that we're all hearing a million times, diversity and inclusion, to include, right? Include means do not cast out, right? Inclusion is the opposite of casting out. When we versus or we fight against, we are not including in the mix, right? I remember talking a number of years ago to a friend of mine who was a cancer survivor. And she said, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I decided to make it my friend and to learn from it.
Wow.
And to learn everything I could, because it had a story to tell me that I needed to address and hear.
Wow.
And I'm like that. I mean, because if you're going to dance with the partner that brought you, in other words, the thing you're dealing with, you like it or you don't like it. I was talking to my daughter about that. She had something come up the other day, and she was just like, I go, honey, I know this is not what you would have chosen. Said, but think about where it's choosing you, because there's something important that you unpack in it.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this didn't happen for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. You were talking about this or that versus this and that, right? I remember talking to Sarah Madras about a year ago, and we were speaking, and we were talking about marriage. And I said, oh my goodness, and this is, typical male. Honey, take the trash. Can you take the trash out? And the game is on. Like, what? She really wants me to take the trash out now? And we don't reply. And then she says it 2-3 times. And then we get, okay, I'm gonna take it out, and boom, and you come back. Versus, oh, sweetheart, the game is, so first quarter is about to end. I'm gonna take it out at the end of the first quarter. Is that okay? Oh yeah, babe. Communication. Boom. Or I want to go to the gym, and she comes and says, let's go to the park. Go, why is she coming to this? This and that is, oh, sweetheart, if we want to go to the park now, I would like to go to the gym thereafter. Oh yeah, sure. We are not communicating, and we're thinking we're still the little boys in the house with mom saying, and mom wants to tell me, and we're bringing that to our marriages where it's this and that, and it's not, the wife isn't saying or. She's saying, hey, can you do this now? I'm like, no, I can't do it now, but can I do it in 2 minutes or 30 minutes because I'm doing something now? Okay, great. Our lack of communication puts us in that place, and I think it's the flip side of being curious, right? It's us now saying, hey, here it is. I'm doing this. Can I please do it? Okay, good. And I found out when I started to do that, there was less. And I would go, she doesn't know what I'm doing now. She's making her request known. And I'm there thinking, she knows I'm sitting in front of this TV, or she knows I'm in front of the computer. Why is she asking me? I'll catch
Or maybe she does know, and she's not asking you to do it now. She's just asking you to do it sometime today.
Put it in your to-do list. But we're going, So you're right. You're right. And it's such a reframing that when you were talking about empathy, it's us coming and saying, wow, I need to understand. I need to be empathetic. It has to be in your purview. It has to be there. You have to make it come there, or else it's going to go in the back. And then whatever, if you put a canoe in a river without paddling to where your destination is, you will go with the flow of that river. You will go with the flow, meaning your mind. That mind will just flow, and you wouldn't have any control, versus I'm going to be empathetic. I'm going to be in the presence of this and that. I'm not going to be in the presence of this or that. Right? Back to you, sis.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. You framed that concept very, very well in examples. That's the stuff that happens day to day, is when we tell ourselves, somebody makes a request, and we fill in the gaps with the timing, the expectation, and then we project it on the person who's just made the request.
Yep.
Right. Instead of that neutral, kind of curious, like, oh, okay, so you're asking me to take the trash out. Does it have to be done this minute? Because maybe it does. Maybe someone's in that trash and it's really, and it needs to be taken out right now, or it's starting to ooze all over, whatever, right?
Correct.
It's a timing thing, in which case it's kind of to that whole thing you were talking about the accident. It's like, or the person who just got hurt on the job. It's like, which do you take care of first?
Correct.
Because up until a minute ago, watching that game was primary importance. But then if something's oozing all over the place and you need to get that, you need to help your wife to get that cleaned up, it still may not be fun, but you're just like, oh, okay, let me come and help with that. So I think that's the whole thing, is we realize, I love the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, The Four Agreements. Great book. Fantastic book. It's less than 200 pages. And it's like, if you follow these 4 simple agreements, it makes life so much easier, right? To the point of, it doesn't have to be hard. We're the ones that get in our way and make it hard, right? So if we're not being who we're here to be, that's going to be really hard, because we're being something we're not here to be, and being something we aren't is much harder than being something we are.
Okay.
And so this idea, the 4 agreements, is, first one is be impeccable with your word. And that's not just promises, right? Promises, like, keep your promises, but it's also choose your words carefully. And even the words you're telling yourself as the fill-ins for what someone else has just requested or said to you. Like, it's like, where are you filling stuff in without being curious and asking for clarification? And we do it all the time. I mean, for timing's sake, that's just what the brain is kind of wired to do. But we don't realize how much that then starts that storyline that becomes the tome, that over time, this person is like, doesn't even realize that they exist in this storyline in our heads. They're like, geez, I didn't realize I was the villain in your story.
Wow.
But being impeccable with your word is really important. I think the second one is, don't take anything personally. Because it's not to be taken personally. It's somebody else's story made up in their head based on them filling it, right? And third one, I think, is don't make assumptions. And the fourth one is do your best. And it goes to that thing I always talk about, where my mom taught me how to leave things better than I found them,
Correct.
That thinking about, when we interact with people, even if somebody is a dog to you, they're just like all up and rude, they totally disrespect you, and they mean it. It's not a storyline you have in your head. They intentionally meant to hurt you. You can still do your best.
Yes.
Right? Because you're separate from them. Right? When we get so upset, that person was so rude. It's like, well, how did you respond to that? I was rude back. Okay. Well,
oh my goodness, that again, how we always told the children, use your words. You always told your kids, use your words, use your words. I think this we should do one for grown-ups, where it's maybe use your mind.
Use your common sense.
Use your common sense, because with these 4 agreements, be impeccable with your words, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, always do your best. When we do put those things in play, oh my goodness, you're so pleasant to be around. People are hey Tracy, how are you? Like, but why are people just, because people can be neutral around you. Oh, wow.
People can be. I mean, when you're doing these 4 things, if you want to call doing, right? Doing to be, like, these are good things to do to be a better person. When you're doing these things, you create a space, an environment for people to be. And people can show up. I was talking to a client earlier, and I said, I think we're ready for that energy talk. He's just like, oh boy. And I said, it's all energy. I said, and this isn't some hippie stuff, you know, no offense to any hippies out there. That's great too. But this is quantum physics. This is Einstein. He was a very respected man. He still is. You know, quantum is energy, right? It's all energy. And we show up first in our energy, right? So if we bring the energy profile of being impeccable with our word, not taking things personally, not assuming anything, asking for clarification, you know, being curious, and doing our best, regardless of how somebody else is being. Wow, is that like the safest place ever to be?
I'm telling you.
Is that the most comfortable? Like you just said, neutral, right? Like where you're pleasant.
Yeah.
Right. If not downright fun and easy,
Correct.
Right, to be with. And I think about it oftentimes again in terms of if I'm my closest neighbor, I live in closest proximity to me. So me liking me is the most important thing. Right. I love this,
like
but
that.
I have to repeat this meme because it just came to mind when I was talking about neighbor.
Go ahead.
I saw somebody post something that was hysterical on Instagram. It was like, Mr. Rogers did not prepare me to deal with these neighbors. Or it was my neighbors or something. Mr. Rogers did not prepare me to deal with my neighbors. my neighbors.
Oh man.
But Don Miguel Ruiz did.
I know, true.
Right.
And I put those 4 agreements in there, you know, in the contents I you know, pasted on my found it online, and you were on point with the 4 beautiful mind you have. So what's your ethos? What do you live by?
I live by the be to do. I really do. You know, is how am I being, right? How is my energy being? Because what we read, and especially in this day and age where when we're with each other physically, we've got masks on, right? So we can't read each other's facial expressions. When we're over Zoom, we can't really see body, you know, language. I mean, we do a little bit up here, you know.
Correct.
Correct. We can't see. I mean, I could be sitting here talking like this, and meanwhile, I'm like underneath where you can't see, like moving along there, buddy.
Yes.
You know, so we're not seeing the whole picture. So we're now being challenged to, and also to people talk about, I get asked this question all the time. Can you do a presentation on how to lead remotely? How do I build connection with my people when they're all remote? How do you do that? I mean, the only reason we have this question mark that we have no idea how to do that is because we're not being. Doing is what we've done. All of a sudden, we're in this virtual world of leadership. We haven't done that before. So that's why we're at a loss. But we know how to build connection as human beings. It may be in a different way. And so people are like, teach me what my capacities are to have that, because I don't know based on what I've done. Yeah. I've never done this before.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where it's a big quandary, and people are just like, have no clue. And so they tried to apply what they've done to this new arena, and it doesn't work. But at the same time, like when I talk about the energy piece, is I'm like, well, are you intentional about your energy when you show up on a Zoom call? And they're like, what? And like, okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Right. You've got these internal senses.
Yes.
What are you sensing? Like, first of all, are you clearing your energy before you get on the Zoom call? I'm not talking about smudging with sage and stuff, although if you want to do that, that's good too. But I'm talking about clearing your head space, clearing your heart space, and clearing your gut space. If you got other stuff that's coming up, don't rush on that Zoom call and bring that stuff with you. Clear that stuff. Or at least put it in a corner and in a box and close it and lock it, so you don't take it with you.
But you know, and that's exactly what you picked up when we got on the call, right? I'm sitting and I'm going, and I'm thinking, because had you not asked that question, had you not been curious to ask that question, you may have started to build a tune. You may have, and said, well, why is he doing that? He's doing that because again, our minds are like that. We want to find answers. Why is there? And if no answer comes from the source, we'll create one.
Oh, yeah.
We will
We're
create
very
one
creative.
fast. And so James goes, take a moment to process before going to the next meeting or event. I saw someone say, there are essential things I take before I leave the house. I think it was beginning with Sarah. She in her brave leaders group, she says, I take my sunglasses and my phone, and I take my and the first thing that hit me was, what do I take when I leave before going into a space? I take my self-confidence. Is what I said. I take my self-confidence because I would remember my mom would always say, so growing up, tall, I, being not shy of being tall, but I would naturally bend and just naturally
To be
bend.
more the size of everybody else.
Maybe, right? And mom will go, Wulwyn, straighten your back. And I'll go, yes, be tall, stand tall, be confident, and walk. I'm like, okay, mom. Okay, mom. And it's as if every single time I'm leaving the house, I'm hearing, hey, Wulwyn, stand, shoulders up, be tall, be confident. And confidence is free. It is so free that you can have a whole lot of it, but you got to have it with humility, right? Because there again lies the balance and moderation of it, because being too confident could be arrogance. It could be ego.
Well, it could be perceived, but that's in somebody else's
Correct.
story,
That's
right?
somebody
That's not
else's
what is
story.
the reality. Well, so may I share a distinction that I make between confidence and self-worth?
Sure. Can I just finish that, and then you?
Oh gosh, yes,
Yeah.
of
Put
course.
a pin on there.
Yeah,
so
you bet.
Your confidence being overconfident. I'll say that. Let me say that. You're overconfident.
Is that possible?
Overconfidence?
In
Yes.
reality, we've given it a meaning that we've used, but is it truly
so
possible?
I'm going to go to the sports analogy, right? I'm coming on the court and I see a 5-footer, or 5'10", or 5'5", who's fundamentalist sound. I don't know the fundamentalist sound. I'm here 6'3", and I'm like, I'm gonna beat this dude. I'm done. All I'm gonna do is just back you up and score. I'm beating you. And first thing I get a punch in my face. When that person zooms by me, I go, where did that come from? All of a sudden, and that may have been the last point, or that may have been the deciding point, my overconfidence in my height is going to put me in a dump where my team loses or I lose. So that's how I define overconfidence.
Overconfidence.
Right?
Yeah, I look at it as, because confidence, the way I see it, is we simply know how to do something because we've done it. We're confident because we have experience. Right. And yet self-worth is recognizing what we're worth and the value we have in that moment, right? The value we bring. So we say, what do we take with us? I could also change the language and say, what do I bring with me? Right. And so what is that value? Self-worth. And so when you're tall, what is the value of that? In owning it is the reason confidence. We can't have confidence when we haven't had experience there. So you see these people who, that's where sometimes they do this, what I call the surrogate thing, where they puff their chest up, and that's not confidence because they haven't done it. Right. It's ego is what it is. It's ego stepping in and trying to put up this false facade of self-worth is what they're really trying to go for. So this is again to the question of people saying, how do I show up as a heartfelt leader remotely? How do I build connection with my reports or with my people remotely? It's by recognizing and being in the energy of your self-worth, right? Knowing your self-worth, knowing your value, knowing where that fits, knowing where that makes an impact and makes a difference, and teaching and leaning in and helping others do the same. Right? Create that space for other people to step up to their value. Because again, I was just talking, I just took over a membership chair for for a group I'm in. And, and I was talking to the guy this morning who held the position, and where we want to go. I'm like, okay, what have you built? Where do you see this going? And how could I take that baton and continue that charge and bring my own value to the table? And I said, one of the things that when we have disengagement with members, it's because, you know, not everybody is the you know, inborn leader that's like going to step up and say, I'm valuable here, and this is where I think I need to be. And all of this, a lot of people hang back and wait to be told, this is what we want you to do, because they don't really know what their value is in this particular environment. And so, you know, where do we have engagement at all levels? Well, part of it is building and helping people see, where's your value? Where is that value valuable? And you can actually have a felt sense of where it's valued. So when you step into that valuable position, we're going to value you. You're going to feel valued. To your point, seen, right? When we're seen, it's about being seen in our value where it's valuable. And so how do we create environments that allow for that? That's where we build engagement, whether we're virtual or whether we're face-to-face, is thinking in terms of the value mark, not the confidence mark, not because we will build confidence over time in doing these things over and over again, right? That's my distinction between value or self-worth, self-value, and confidence.
Gotcha.
You know, arrogance will happen in as you stated, overconfidence, because that is not true worth or value. Our true value is not in our ability to be confident. It's in our ability to own our value.
Correct.
Right. And I think that's where we really need to understand, because that false identity of, well, I'm confident. I mean, I met plenty of men in Butner who were confident in what they could do as leaders from a success standpoint and had no ability to understand their self-worth, especially after being incarcerated. Their self-worth was pretty low. Right. So, but they were confident that they could figure out a spreadsheet, and they were confident that they could, you know what I mean? Like, because they had done those things. But confidence and self-worth are very different.
Correct. You know, we are 2 minutes to it, and all I'll say to our eavesdroppers and to us is, you know, whatever know your value, right? Know that you are valuable. If you haven't uncovered what that value is, or if you are you're not giving yourself the time to uncover it, right? Those questions that we had there, you know, who are you serving? What are your addictions? All these different things. Go and do the homework, right? Go and do the homework. Ask those questions. Don't just write it down and say, ponder upon it. Ponder.
Can I make a plug real quick?
Go ahead.
Because my book is coming out next week on Amazon. And it talks about how to do that. That's what the book is about: how to determine your value, how to determine where it's valuable, and how to determine what that legacy looks like in the impact of that. Right. So it is a how-to book too. It's not just this conceptual, hey, this is important. Right. And so if you're really, like Wulwyn's right, do the homework. Those questions are so valuable. And I think uncovering what the meaning of those things are for each of us in this time that we're in is going to be incredibly valuable to us. But if you really want to dig in to your self leadership and self growth, check out Looking In. It'll be on Amazon next week, probably midweek.
Oh my goodness, James, I think we'll take this question beginning next week, and we promise you, let's remember this, because I have something to say about it, and I know you will have something to say about it, Traci. James goes, I want to make sure I didn't miss something. How can we operate in the unknown with confidence? Is this associated with self-worth?
Yes. Oh,
I love that. That's a loaded question. So next week, James, we will start up with that, because we want to respect. What is the name of your book, Traci?
Looking In.
Say that again.
Looking In.
Looking In by Traci Waldman Phillips.
Yep. Discover, define, and align the true value of your life, leadership, and legacy.
And on that note, we love you, eavesdroppers. See you in the next 2 weeks. Y'all take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.